Hi, in this lecture, we are going to see how to create an Azure function using Visual Studio. So in the previous recording, we see how to create an Azure function from the portal. So we are going to learn how to create an Azure function in Visual Studio, how to debug the Azure function, and we'll be seeing Azure function HTTP trigger with Open API. And finally, we will be seeing how to deploy Azure function from Visual Studio. So now let's open our Visual Studio and see how to create an Azure function. I am here in the Visual Studio. So from the Visual Studio, click on the Create New Project. In the project template, you can go and search for Azure function and select the Azure function template and click on Next. So let's name this project as Function App HTTP. So I'm going to create a HTTP trigger function app. And I'm good with this location and click on next. And you can see the function worker. So you can select the .NET Core different framework like .NET Core 6.0 or a 7. So I'm good with the .NET Core 6.0. And in the function, you can able to select the different triggers of function like HTTP trigger with Open API, Kafka trigger, Q trigger, and the list goes on. You can select uh, what kind of trigger the function app need to be work on. So I'm going to select HTTP trigger for this demo case, and you can select the authentication level. I am selecting the function app. So if you want this function need to be accessed anonymously, you can go and select anonymously. So it don't require an authentication or a function key to authenticate. Now let's go and create this function app. All right, so our function app has been created successfully. So if you see there is a file function one.cs file here, and in the function, this is a HTTP trigger function, and you can see it is been logging the log information, and it's going to get a request, HTTP request, and from the request, it is going to extract the name and responding back from the into the response message. And you can see other than the function one.cs, you can see a host.json file. It's mainly going to log information. So it is going to log the function logs into the application inside. And you can see the local settings.json file where you can keep all your local settings, like if you want to connect to a blob storage connection string or want to a database connection string. So for debugging the function app in the local. Now let's go and build and debug this application locally. So for that, I'm just clicking on this debug option here. So it's first go and compile your function app. Okay, the function app has been running. I can able to access this function app using this endpoint. Copy this endpoint and go into the browser. The browser, I'm going to paste this function app URL. And if you remember, this function app is expecting a name field, and it is going to return that field back to the response. So let's pass that name. So I'm going to pass the name. So I'm going to set the value as name as VS function app. Now click on enter. And you can see it is responding back the message, hello, VS function app. This is a HTTP trigger function executed successfully. And if you see here in the console, you can see the logs are being displaying in the function app. So now let's see how we can able to deploy this function app from the Visual Studio. For that, I'm going into the Solution Explorer and right click on the function project. And you can see the option called Publish. So click on Publish. And I want to publish this Azure function into the Azure. Select the Azure as the option here and click on Next. And here we can able to specify the target. So I'm going to select the Azure function app Windows. You can go and select it to a Linux, or you can containerize the function app or into the container registry as well. So I'm going to select this as an Azure Function App for Windows and click on Next. And select your subscription in case you have multiple subscription. So right now I don't have an instance of Function App running. So I'm going to create a new instance of function. So let's name this as Function App HTTP Tech Feed as the function app name. And the subscription is the free trial, and the resource group, let's name this, create a new resource group. I'm going to name this as RG function app and click on OK. And you can see the different plan type: consumption, premium, and app plan. So I'm going to OK with the consumption based plan. And if you see that it is creating a, okay, so let's change that into again consumption plan. And the location I'm going to with the east to west. And it's creating a storage account. So let's create a new storage account. Yes, so I need a storage account that need to be the same location of the function app. So I'm going to select the, let's name, the default name is fine, and the location is in the east US, and click on OK. And the application insight, so let's OK. So let's create a new application insight. So right now this is in the Australia center. I want to have the application insight also into be the east US. So let's select the location as east US and click on OK. And let's go and create this function app. So it's validating all the properties, and it's going to create the function app in the Azure portal. All right, so if you see, our function app has been created successfully. So if you see, I already signed into my Azure portal. So in your case, if you didn't sign in, it will ask first you need to sign into your Azure portal from the Visual Studio. I already signed into the Visual Studio. That's the reason it is not asking to me to sign in again. So anyway, so our function app has been created successfully. Now let's click Finish. And it is creating a publishing profile for this Azure function. And it looks like the publishing profile has been created successfully. Let's click Close and publish this Azure function to the portal. So now click on Publish. All right, so our function app has been published successfully. Now let's go into the Azure portal and verify the function app. So I'm here in the Azure portal. In the Azure portal, you can able to select the function app. And if you see the function app HTTP tech feed is the one which we created from the Visual Studio. Let's open that function app. And in the left side, you can see the functions. Click on the functions. And if you see, the function one is the name which we provided for the function. And it is the HTTP trigger, and it is been in a running enable state. So now let's go to our Visual Studio. And you can create a multiple function inside a function app. So now let's try to create one more function. So before that, I'm going to name this function as, instead of function one, function HTTP. Let's click on this function app and right click on this function app. And I'm going to add a new item. Let's click on the new Azure function. So I want to create an Azure function. Click on add. This time I want to create the HTTP trigger with an open API. So this function is going to integrate with the Swagger. So you will be getting the Swagger UA. So I'm just going to add this with the HTTP trigger with an open API. And if you see, the function one is been, a new function is been added, and you can see all the extensions for the open API. So let's wait for the function app to be created. All right, so the function app has been created, and let's name this function as function open API. And let's debug this function app and verify it has been integrated with the open API. All right, so our second function app is been running. So if you want to verify the Swagger UA, copy this endpoint and go to the browser and paste that endpoint. So now you can see the function app is integrated with the OpenAPI Swagger. And if you want to test this function locally, you can try it out from the portal. If I click on the try it out, and you can pass the name OpenAPI. Let's name it as OpenAPI test and click on execute. And you can get the response here as hello OpenAPI test. And if you want to debug, you can able to put a breakpoint and you can able to do all the debugging of your function app. So if I put a breakpoint and if I go to the function and click on execute again, and you can see the breakpoint is being hit. Now let's publish this function app also into the portal and see the two function app in the Azure portal. Now right click on the function app and click on publish. So we can see the publishing profile is already been created. So publish it again. All right, so our function app is being published successfully. Now let's go to the Azure portal. So I'm here in the Azure portal and in the functions, let's go and refresh the function. Let's open the function app. Okay, so it has been refreshed. And if you see, we rename the function one to function HTTP and function OpenAPI. And now you can see that two function app is been up and running. Okay, so if you see the function app is been up and running. So that's all about this lecture. Hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching.